Welcome to your Healing Place podcast with Linda and Mindy. It is our desire to address common concerns of how abortion and faith intersect in order to validate the emotional pain and grief that abortion can bring and give hope that recovery is possible. What is it really to know God? I mean, when we become believers, does our life just whoop, everything goes away that was bad and everything good comes in? And no, that's not necessarily the case. We now have new eyes. We are no longer a slave to sin. We might have habits that are left over from our previous life, and those take a lot of intervention by the Lord and help from people. That's why we need community. You know, we sin in community, we need to heal in community. But to know God means to know that if we press in even in the darkest moments of our lives, and I've had some of those moments, and much of my sin is these internal workings of how my thoughts are and just some of the behaviors that come out of those thoughts. And I would tell you in those moments that I would never change. And yet I can look back now and know that God has done that work in me. He allows suffering. He allows us. He doesn't just fix us and make us perfect people when we're believers. We still have sin. We still have struggle. We still have flesh. We still have the world, and we still have the enemy coming against us. But his promises now become true, and they get magnified in our life because we can run to the lover of our souls. If he saved us from hell, how much more is he going to not save us from what's happening in our world, from ourselves? He's good. He's good. And really just think about what good means. It's something I've been meditating on a lot, and I can't really put words to good. And oftentimes the word good is like if somebody says, "How are you doing today?" "I'm doing good." "Well, how come you're not doing great?" You know, that's kind of the thing that is said. But in Scripture, good is a much deeper and richer meaning for who God is. And he's always good. He's never not good. We might have a lack of understanding of what blessings look like. You know, we think a blessed life is a life without trouble. And that's not true. And in our culture, we strive for comfort, do we not? We strive for pleasure. We strive for entertainment. We do whatever we can to get out of tense and uncomfortable situations. But I don't really think that that's a blessing, because we end up learning to rely on ourselves, learning to rely on the institutions and systems that are put to place in our culture in our time. Sometimes suffering is the blessing. Sometimes pain is the blessing. And I guess I could give my own life example for that. I struggled so many years with my own thoughts, just the way I think about things, the way I behave after thinking about those things. I just felt like a captive to them. And the only way I could describe it was like a herd of horses. You know, if they go running towards a cliff, they're just going to run right off. They're not smart enough to stop. That's how I felt like my thoughts were kind of always just taking me over that cliff to destruction. And there were times when I felt helpless to them, really helpless. And then I was reading in the Scriptures, because I lean into God. I really don't want to remain stuck. But he let me suffer like this for a long time. But he always met me there. But I would lean into Scripture, and I read about King Jehoshaphat in the Old Testament. And there was a time when there was like 3 armies coming against him. And they didn't have any weapons. And they went to what they did is they didn't go prepare for battle in the way we think of. They went and prepared for battle by having a big worship session. And that worship session continued as they walked out into battle. And when they got out there in response to their worship, God had already turned these three armies against each other, and they destroyed each other. All Israel had to do was walk up and get the spoil, get all the riches. God is honored by our worship, even in our most fearful times. And that's usually when we're seeking him, and I think that personally, sovereignly, was why he keeps struggles in our life, because our greatest sin is pride, turning away from him, not trusting him, thinking we got it all figured out, wanting to walk our own way again. And it's subtle. It's so subtle. It happens often in my life over and over. But God is always there. God searches the earth to and fro to act on behalf of those whose hearts are loyal to him. And once we turn to him, we are loyal to him. He's not saying, okay, well, I want you to go prove it. Go spend, 5 years doing this, that, and the other, and then I'll act on your behalf. That's not how God works. The moment we turn to him, he receives us. Because he already knows our hearts are fickle. He already knows that we are weak. He is perfect. And that's why he had to die, because we couldn't. We couldn't do it. He died because he is good, not because we are good. So getting to know that God, our God, the God of the universe, and understanding that truth, that he didn't die because I did anything right. He died because I was a mess, a hot mess, and he died the same for you. Getting to know that God will bring such peace in your life, because you'll come to learn that his story actually is yours, and your story is actually his, because he took your sin on the cross and then he imputed his righteousness onto you. That's a good God. That's good. Thank you for listening. This podcast was inspired by the many conversations had through the years with women struggling from the emotional pain associated with abortion. Thank you for allowing us into your healing journey. Subscribe on major platforms where podcasts can be heard. Learn more about virtual abortion recovery healing at www.anevenplace.com. The link is in the show notes.